card bill came, and we're maxed out.
Maxed out cards, rent is due. We just need some extra cash to help us get by.
Maybe we should go to 27cash.com.
With our bad credit,
27cash.com is one of the largest personal loan networks. They can help people with any type of credit get up to $5,000, and cash can hit our bank account as soon as tomorrow.
When you need extra cash, go to 27cash.com. That's 27cash.com. 27cash.com.
WNSR, Nashville Sports Radio.
Your brain is an amazing thing. But as you get older, it naturally begins to change, causing a lack of sharpness or even trouble with recall. Thankfully, the breakthrough in Prevagen helps your brain and actually improves memory. The secret is an ingredient originally discovered in jellyfish. Based on a clinical study of subgroups of individuals who are cognitively normal or mildly impaired, Prevagen has been shown to improve memory. A Pharmacy Times National Survey of Pharmacists rated Prevagen the #1 pharmacist-recommended memory support brand for the 5th year in a row. You can find it in the vitamin aisle in stores everywhere without a prescription. Help your memory. Try Prevagen today. Prevagen. Healthier brain, better life. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
From the Nashville Sports Radio Media Complex, this is the George Plaster Show. Call George now at 615-844-5600 and online at WNSR.com. And now, George Plaster.
Featuring Tennessee Sports Hall of Famer Watson Brown, Tennessee Sports Hall of Famer Kelly Holcomb, along with Young Gun Billy Derrick. And now, here's your host, George Plaster.
Hello again, everybody. Welcome in. It is a beautiful Monday in Nashville, Tennessee. The temperature, a little warm. I like it. Means summer's just around the corner. In the background, you see our new digs from the Ford Ice Center in Bellevue. And today we make a change in our format. We've been doing this podcast form for the last couple of years, and nothing against it. I've enjoyed it, but I have also badly missed not being able to talk to people in a phone call setting. So tomorrow, we're going to take the entire 5 o'clock hour and open it up to phone calls. Today, abbreviated, ironically, by my Atlanta Braves, who got rained out Saturday night at Truist Park, and so they played a day-night today. The bullpen gagged game 1. By the way, they're not playing all that great. Not that I would know, thanks to the folks at Comcast. If you're wondering, you will hear me rip on Comcast a bunch until this thing gets settled. Now, let's check into Murfreesboro and find out how Kelly Holcomb's doing. Kelly, you look much better on radio.
Oh, is that right? So do you. So do you, George.
Everybody knew that, though.
Yeah. Don't go there. All right, your Braves are kind of in a slide, aren't they? A little bit. I mean, they got roughed up the other day by the Padres, didn't they?
Yeah, they're sucking wind right now. They have lost 3 in a row to San Diego, and as of this moment, they are 5.5 behind the Phillies. Now they're going to make the playoffs because they've got a really good record, but they need to win the division. They do not need to go in as a wild card. Although in baseball, who knows?
George, I was thinking though, you're all upset about Comcast, but you can listen to it on WNSR.
This is true, and I have.
I'm sure.
I have.
Have you called Comcast and told them how discouraged you are with their product?
Well, if you try, they end up sending you to Guam or Haiti. And so you never know what you're getting when you call them. But if you'll stay on the line afterwards, they'll have a brief survey for you. Thank you. Let me introduce the third member of our crew. If you've watched the podcast for the last couple of years, Billy Derrick is part of that. And by the way, the podcast is still out there and available. You can watch us, although God only knows why you'd want to. Billy, how are you?
I'm doing great. We're on radio, but we still got every other way you can listen to us, whether it's YouTube, Twitter, Facebook. So just adding ways to listen to the Plaster Show.
Okay, about 2/3 of those ways, I have no idea what they are. Can you get specific?
Yeah, so we got YouTube, and we've had that since the beginning. Twitter as well, Facebook, and you also, if you missed any of our shows, you just want to throw them on, whether you're on a run or at a workout, whatever you're doing, you can hop on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts, and you can tune us in and watch, and you can fast forward for certain interviews, so you don't have to sit through the entire thing. So, but yeah, you can also do it on YouTube as well. So all kinds of different ways.
By the way, hello to all the folks listening in Kelly Holcomb land on 107.9 up in the Murfreesboro and Rutherford County area. We begin every show with an update. This one's especially important, Billy. Don't give us the schedule of the NBA games tonight because there are none. We want some meat on the bone in this update, and then Kelly and I will judge afterwards.
And this update is brought to you by Lori Burnett Leland. You can visit her online at mortgageladyusa.com. All right, so Scotty Scheffler obviously was in the news big time, starting that was later last week, kind of a crazy Friday morning. But his arraignment has been delayed until June the 3rd. His attorney, Steve Romines, told ESPN that a not guilty plea will be entered on the new date in Louisville. Scheffler is not required to attend the arraignment, which originally was scheduled for tomorrow. So this is going to be really interesting to see what happens here. How does this affect his next tournament, where he plays, if he can practice and stuff like that? But, I mean, from Friday to who knows when, this is going to remain an issue.
This feels, Kelly, like a little bit of a stall to try to see if cooler heads prevail.
I agree, George. You could see some of the guys. I mean, I know Will Zalatoris and a couple of guys got out of their car. I mean, that's a tough deal right there. And I don't think Scotty Scheffler knew what was going on. I don't think there was, he didn't know that there was a man that died, but like he said some things that they were pointing him in a direction. And I would have been the same way because, when I played football, I was wanting to be there early. I got out on the field early. You want to get ready. You want to get ready for all that stuff. And that was a major championship. And he was in the game. And I would have probably panicked too. I'm sure he got where, like, I got to get to the place. And I just think it was a lot of misunderstanding. I'm sure that he had no clue what was going on. He was just trying to get to the course, as along with all those other guys. I think even John Daly withdrew because he couldn't get there. So he's like, I'm not worried about it. I know I'm not going to win the thing, so I'm out. So it's kind of a messed up situation, and it'll be interesting to see what happens with all this.
What do you shoot? Was it 66 Friday?
Yeah, it was really good Friday.
To me,
he played really well, and then on Saturday he which I can't believe he played that good. After he got thrown in jail, he had to stretch in jail in his jail cell. Then he comes back and he plays really well. And if he doesn't have that bad day on Saturday, it's the first time in 41 rounds that he shot over par, which is a PGA record. But like if he makes a run and shoots a 65, 66 that day, he's probably going to win that thing. He's that good of a player, and he came back and got it to -13, which is kind of incredible.
Stretching in a jail cell.
Stretching in a jail cell.
He did say that was a first for him, which I don't think surprised any of us. But what got me was he was booked on 4 charges, including second-degree assault of a police officer after his vehicle allegedly dragged an officer to the ground.
And that was the part that surprised some people was I don't know that we had necessarily heard that. Anyway, we don't know all the facts. I have refrained from my normal sarcasm because I just don't know everything in this.
Yeah. Well, another event that actually happened yesterday in NASCAR, Ricky Stenhouse is apparently facing a ban after throwing a punch at Kyle Busch. I don't have the video yet. I'm hoping to show it a little bit later. But Busch had wrecked Stenhouse on the second lap of the $1 million race last night in a move that looked like retaliation for how Stenhouse had raced him earlier. He drove his damaged car to Busch's pit stall and parked it with no way to get out of the track while the race was going on. He stewed in street clothes for hours until Busch arrived at his hauler. So they went at it, and it was ugly. There were a lot of people that got involved. First, it was just them two. and then different teams. So kind of a crazy ending to that one last night.
But this is not the first time a punch has ever been thrown.
No. Hey, nothing like a good altercation. We need some of that every now and then, you know?
Do we?
Yeah, absolutely. Like sometimes I want to punch Billy, but you know.
But he's not going 160 miles an hour or more.
Those
No,
NASCAR
true.
fights are a little bit different.
Billy, were you hoping that on radio that Kelly would be warmer, more
heartfelt?
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe a little
No,
bit.
it's going to be. It's probably going to be even worse.
Yeah, that's
Probably going to be even worse, Billy.
He gets his buddies listening.
At least
in
George, at least we
Murfreesboro.
got him up before noon today because we met earlier. So we got him up before noon, and he was in, and he did all the stuff. He got everything on the prompts. He did everything right.
Yeah.
It looks good, and you know, a lot of times he's not there, and he doesn't. There's a lot of stuff that are mishaps with him. So
the key today is hit the brake on time.
Yes,
we're going to try really hard on
Got that written down about
I've
5
even
different.
got on my phone, those of you who are watching this, I now have an iPhone. I've had one for several years now, and it actually has a clock that tells me it's 4:12:55 at this very moment.
Well, so you got the controls.
Oh, yeah.
I like it. Okay, SEC
Right.
baseball tournament is coming up. Begins tomorrow, 9:30 start time there. It always starts early and it ends late. Last game usually goes till midnight, but starts with Georgia and LSU tomorrow. Something interesting, they're going to be implementing the use of a double first base on an experimental basis throughout this tournament. The purpose is to reduce collisions between the defense and the base runner at first. It has been utilized in a number of SEC non-conference games this season. Vanderbilt has used it a couple of times, and it's really for the safety of the players because you've seen some bad injuries. Christian Moore earlier this year, was thrown out. He was called out, and he was actually called for runner interference on a really weird call. Vitello was not happy about it. So there's been some cases this year where it would have been nice to have a double-sided first base. It might, for some old school people, it might take some getting used to. But it's a double-sided first base. See it a lot in
saying
softball.
like a bag the size of a stadium?
No, it's another first base on the outside on the right side of the baseline. You've seen it at softball. They have it at softball, tournaments all the time. It's for player safety. I don't know if they're testing this out to see if they're going to use it full time and implement it full time next year, but I thought that was kind of interesting, and you haven't seen that in meaningful baseball games yet.
So Vandy plays Florida, and the winner of that game plays Tennessee?
Yep. Vanderbilt plays Florida tomorrow, 4:30, first pitch. Winner plays Tennessee. So Vanderbilt, it's do or die. They did get named in the last 4 in this morning, according to D1 Baseball. So that probably tells you they're going to have to win tomorrow. I don't know. It feels different than basketball, the way they do things in baseball, but either way, it's do or die for them, and they're going to have to get going. So Vanderbilt and Florida tomorrow as well in the SEC tournament. One quick basketball note here. LeBron James apparently will not be involved in the Lakers head coaching search. The franchise is considering his podcasting partner, J.J. Redick, among others, for the position, which would be interesting. And obviously they have a podcast together. It's actually pretty good. So who knows? Maybe this is a smokescreen. I'd like to disagree with that.
It is a smokescreen. If you think for a minute that he's going to find out who the coach is at the press conference, hey, JJ,
well,
congrats.
Nice
Please. It's not going to play out that way.
Doesn't feel like it.
No.
Doesn't feel like it, no.
No. Hey, Kelly, we're going to hit the break on time.
Oh, nice.
And then
I like it.
when we come back, the tallest guest that we will ever have will be the first guest. Former Vanderbilt star, later Chicago Bull, a man who has 4 NBA championship rings. Will Perdue will be in the house. He will join us after the break. Listen to this. You're listening to the George Plaster Show on WNSR.
Nice.
It was the most horrible experience that any mother could ever go through. I knew that I needed to get help. My friend, she immediately said, you need to call Perdue. And you guys were there within an hour. You guys are like family for us.
Yeah, sure is nice to connect with the people that you're doing your best to help.
As the trusted premier custom home builder in Middle Tennessee, Donnelly Timmons has over 20 years of experience in the industry. Whether you're looking to build your dream home or renovate your current home, their team will ensure that every client and every remodel is unique, luxurious, and completed on time within budget. Founders Dustin Timmons and Joey Donnelly have over 25 years of construction experience in the Nashville area. Together, they have completed projects in Forest Hills, Oak Hill, Green Hills, Franklin, and Brentwood. Dustin and Joey believe that communication is the most important aspect of all construction projects. Therefore, they personally manage each project themselves and are involved in job site activities on a daily basis. Their commitment to quality and integrity has earned them an outstanding reputation among their clients. Contact them to set an appointment for a free consultation or to view some of their completed projects. Give them a call at 615-456-7983 or log on to DonnellyTimmons.com.
Nashville, get ready for the greatest show on turf. Electrifying, high-octane, non-stop spring football action. Starting at only $30. Don't miss the season opener this April 27th at Municipal Auditorium.
Hi, I'm Jeff Fisher. The Nashville Cats are bringing arena football back to Nashville.
Grab your tickets now at thenashvillecats.com and be part of the action.
Year number 2 of the Plaster and Friends Celebrity Bowling Night was awesome. And the reason is really simple. I chose Strike and Spare, and they were amazing. They have great food, great bowling, and a staff that is truly ready to go the extra mile to help you. They have 5 family fun centers in the area to choose from. And for more info, go to strikeandspare.com or call them at 615-824-5688.
Just 14 yards. A.J. Brown in Philadelphia. 1 catch, 4 yards. Stephon Diggs. 1 catch, 3 yards.
The McFarland Show with Darren and Justin on Nashville Sports Radio WNSR.
We are back. Oh, nice music. Already an upgrade as we make it day 1 of radio. We head up to Chicago after a wild day in the NBA playoffs and say hello to our buddy Will Perdue. Those of you watching the podcast, you can see him. Those of you listening on radio cannot. Will, how are you?
George, I'm doing well. Can you hear me okay?
We're hearing you loud and clear.
All right. Well, unfortunately, I hear you loud and clear as well.
So, Kelly,
I agree
Will,
totally. I totally agree with that.
You and Will should get along beautifully. Will, I got the feeling last night. I got home right as the meltdown was occurring in Denver, and I got the distinct impression that at least a couple of Nuggets out on the floor wanted nothing to do with any of it. They gave it a, I don't want the ball.
Well, George, this is what and let's make sure that people that are listening understand. I'm just talking about from experience, okay? I feel like that what you saw from the Denver aspect in my experiences was mental fatigue. They looked gassed physically, but that's the hardest part is what people don't understand is the mental anguish of a 7-game series of what you're dealing with everything that happens on the floor. A lot of times we can talk about physical fatigue where your mind knows what the body wants to do, but the body's just like, not tonight. That happens 10, 11, 12 times in an 82-game season. but everybody's fatigued. Everybody's tired. Everybody's played the same amount of games. There's injuries, all that other stuff. But to me, it comes back to, who just wants it more and who can find a way to push your body past that fatigue factor, past the pain factor. And that's what, quite honestly, made Michael Jordan so good. Everybody always talks about George, what's the difference between Michael and everybody else? I'm not just going to say LeBron, but it's just his ability to go to places mentally, which then would help him excel physically, that other people didn't know how to get to, people couldn't get to, or as you just put it, George, just didn't want to get to.
So, it's funny. I was thinking that last night that, the Bulls had two separate 3-year championship runs. And I don't know that I know you do because you lived through one of them. I don't know that we appreciate how ridiculously hard that is.
Well, and you're exactly right, because think about how late Denver played last year until late June, right? And then training camp starts at the same time for them that it does everybody else. You think about this, the season ends April 14th, okay? And then if you go all the way to the finals, and depending on how many games you go, you're middle, late June. It's kind of like an unwritten rule that when the season's over, you take a month off. And then when that month is over, whether it's, you go on a nice vacation, whether you get, and I mean no pun intended, whether you go see a therapist, whether you have surgery, whether you need, physical therapy, you don't just take that 4 weeks off and do nothing. You're already in the process of mentally and physically preparing yourself for next year. But some of that is you just have to give your body a chance to rest, your mind, a break to where you can kind of reset. But so you as a player don't really get to start doing that until basically August 1st. So all of a sudden your preparation for the next year is crammed into 6 weeks to where everybody else has had 3 months. And that's why I think part of the reason why you saw Denver get off to such a slow start, Denver having to really push hard at the end, and then they had to pay the price, at the end of the year to where the mentally, I think that they just couldn't get there. At the end of the day, Minnesota was playing with house money. So how do you recover from getting blown out? When there's no pressure on you and you can come out and just play basketball. But that's what makes Minnesota so scary now is we don't know how far they'll go. We don't know, if they'll be able to beat Dallas. But this makes this team dangerous for the future because of what they're learning right now.
They're going to win a world title eventually, aren't they?
If they can keep this team together, absolutely, because guess what else this does? Technically, nobody's sitting here saying, hey, I want to go to Minneapolis. But what they are saying is I want to go play for this team because I want to win. And that's where you're like, I'll suck it up and go to Minneapolis to play with these guys. And even though I prefer to play in Phoenix or Dallas or Orlando or Miami, something that aesthetically is more pleasing, LA, whatever it may be, just because from a weather standpoint. But at the end of the day, everybody wants to win. And all of a sudden now, Minneapolis is a very attractive destination.
Will, for the last month, I have absolutely been mesmerized by any Knicks game at Madison Square Garden. It is the loudest crowd in the league. That organist does an unbelievable job with them. And I found myself sad yesterday that it couldn't go on any longer. But that guy whose picture we have up, for those who are watching the podcast, Jalen Brunson, unbelievable. Just an incredible tournament that he had. I want you to talk about Madison Square Garden and when it's at that playoff peak, how hard it is for the visitor.
And there's a reason why it's called the Mecca. And those that know a little bit about basketball history understand that. And it's not just because of the New York Knicks. It's because of, St. John's and the games that have always been played there when the Big East tournament was in, Madison Square Garden. It's New York. It just has a certain aura about it. I remember when I was living in Louisville, George, and Kentucky occasionally would remember when that state, I think it still happens, but the State Farm Classic, one year it's in New York, one year it's in Indianapolis, one year it's in Atlanta. It's what, Michigan State, Duke, Kentucky, and Kansas, right? People would look at that schedule and think about, okay, do we want to go to Indiana? Yeah, I mean, I'll go, but it's not New York. They all would save up their money and time to, I want to specifically go to New York, because while I'm there, I'm going to Broadway, and then I'm going to the Mecca, and it's just something about New York City. And I'll be the first to say, I don't live there. I don't want to live there, but I love visiting there. The U.S. Open tennis tournament is one of the greatest sporting events of all time, but it's just in that specific building, it's one of those places. It's hard to explain, George, but like even when you walk in the day of a game just for a shoot around at 10 a.m. when you're playing that night at 7, the hair stands up on your arm. It's electric because of, just what it stands for, the history, but just how passionate those fans are in regards to, they live and die with whether the New York Knicks win or lose.
Former Vanderbilt star, later Chicago Bulls star, Will Perdue on the line with us. Some of you watching the podcast see him in the right corner there. Will, give me the player that you mentally have said, okay, a year from now, when they get the Julius Randles healthy and some others, Bogdanovich, that if you can add this person in free agency, look out for the Knicks. Is there that player in your mind?
That's listen. That's an interesting question, George, because their dynamic has changed. If Julius Randle doesn't get hurt, we're not talking about Jalen Brunson like we're talking about Jalen Brunson.
I totally agree with that, because Julius Randle's a ball hog.
Yeah, and that's why, the dynamic has changed. Julius Randle's not going to discuss this in the public, but he may not want to come back to the Knicks, because I think he's a free agent. I'm not 100% positive, but I think he's a free agent. And if you could get your producer to look this up while we're on the air, because I can't look it up on my phone because I'm using it right now to talk to you, he may not want to come back because of the fact that he is a ball-dominant player. You call him a ball hog. I call him ball dominant. He needs the ball in his hands to be effective. He's not a off the ball player. But now what we've seen, this team is better with the ball in the hands of Jalen Brunson, first and foremost. There is a pecking order when it comes to the dynamic. And now Jalen Brunson has moved up to the top of that pecking order. Few things happen when you get hurt and miss games. One, you become better than you really are because the team struggles without you. Or two, people start to realize that you got some flaws. You have holes in your game because of how well the team plays without you. And I think that's the latter for Julius Randle. So, if he decides to come back to New York and they struggle, it's all going to be on his shoulders. Whether it's his fault or not, everybody's going to be pointing the finger at him, and he may not want that.
He's still got 2 more years left.
Okay, so they may be looking to trade him, quite honestly, because he does have value. Because now we know that Brunson now is a ball-dominant player as well. But the one thing that Brunson does, he's also a facilitator. I don't know if I would refer to Julius Randle as a facilitator. I'd refer to him as a scorer, but not a facilitator. So all of a sudden, that team's dynamic has changed. And when you talk about a player, you're looking at, and this is the interesting thing, you're looking at a Caldwell Pope type. You're looking at a role player. Listen, everybody's a role player, but I mean a guy like a DiVincenzo or a Hart, another one of those guys that now plays a specific role. And now all of a sudden, it's because of how the game has changed. They have DiVincenzo, but they probably need another 3-and-D guy, a guy that can hit the perimeter jumper, knock down the three at a consistent rate. When I say consistent, 38, 39, 40%, but also D up on the perimeter, because as you've seen, the teams that are left, what do they have? Guys that dominate from the perimeter. You look at Boston and you talk about Brown and Tatum. When you look at Minnesota, you talk about Ant. When you look at Dallas, you talk about Kyrie, and you talk about
Luka
Duka.
Yeah, we're talking about perimeter-oriented teams and that's the interesting thing. Think about this. Boston leads the league in percentage of when they get into the paint, how efficient they are when they get into the paint, but they're last in all the teams that are left in actual percentage of points they score in the paint because they shoot 40-plus threes a game. That's just who they are.
Will, before I go to the break and then Kelly takes over, you'll like his questions better. You've met Mark Byington, so have I. The guy is a tireless worker, and it appears to be showing up in numbers as he tries to remake that roster from a year ago. What's your gut feeling about who he has signed, and what does this mean?
Well, I think first and foremost, we're going to see a significant turnaround in the record from last season to this upcoming season. To me now, this is, when you look at the individuals that he has now signed, to me, it now comes down to, all right, be careful what you ask for, coach, because now you got it. You got talent, you got depth. You just got the guy from Michigan State. That could be the X factor, the guy that brings this all together. So now me as a player, I'm like, all right, we're about to see how good you are. How good is your system offensively and defensively? How good are your assistants? And now who are the guys from a playing standpoint to where day one, and when I say day one for these guys, we're talking about June, George. We're not talking about August, September. We're talking about June. All these guys are going to be coming to summer school. The question is, who becomes the true leader of this team? Yes, you have the coach, but who's the player or players? And we don't know that yet because these guys got to, learn about each other. But who's the guy that holds this team together? Who's the cohesive, the extension of the coach's right arm on the floor that buys in first, then gets everybody else to buy in? I mean, I'm going to be honest, George. These guys have bought in because they're getting paid to buy in. But once they get here and start working together and start working out together, develop their little cliques, how do they develop and develop that? How do they develop personally? But how do they develop what that identity is? We don't know what that is yet. We know what Mark wants it to be. But what we don't know is how long will it take them to develop that? And that's the hard part. And to take this full circle, Cal has been doing this for years, and he still struggles to get it right. So that tells you how difficult it is. We got a lot of really good pieces, but it's difficult to try to put all these pieces in spots, just like playing Tetris. Can you keep them healthy? Can you figure out what everybody's role is? And the biggest ultimate question is, George, this isn't about the coach. This is about the players. Are they willing to make the necessary sacrifices in order to win? And usually when you talk about sacrifices, that means statistics, points, rebounds, assists. Are you willing to forgive some of those numbers so that the team wins as a whole? Because I am a perfect example of the more success the team has, the better I look. That was at Vanderbilt with the guys I played with, and most notably at Chicago. When you talk to an old fan now, you think I was a freaking all-star the way that the people treat me in Chicago. I was just a role player.
Enjoy it while it lasts. Will Perdue is with us. After the break, Kelly Holcomb will have some questions for him. Will is up in the Chicagoland area, Cubs, White Sox, and most importantly, the Chicago Bulls. You're listening, or in this case, maybe watching, the George Plaster Show on WNSR.
You were in a crash.
Yeah.
Your kids were in the car with you.
We're very lucky to even be telling this story to you. Nikki treated us like family, and she was very caring and loving, and I'm just so grateful for that. She was somebody I could trust, and being a veteran, that's so important to me. My kids are going to have a better life now because I don't have to worry about those expenses that we were out. Your family has really created a legacy of trust, and I would recommend you to anyone.
Over the years, more men have started to seek help for hormone deficiencies and imbalances, and Dr. Jeffrey Lodge and wife Daphne, along with their experienced staff, give men the treatment required to improve their quality of life, improve your immune system, energy level, cognitive function, and more. There's no better time to achieve a healthy lifestyle. What are you waiting for? Give Cool Springs MD a call today for an appointment at 615-486-3458 or visit the website coolspringsmd.com.
For over 35 years, Wilson Bank & Trust has been committed to providing customized banking solutions to help individuals, families, and businesses in Tennessee achieve their goals. As your full-service community bank, we are proud to offer loans with competitive rates, local decision-making, and fast, friendly service from our experienced lenders. No matter where you are on your financial journey, Wilson Bank & Trust is ready to help you take the next step. Visit your nearest Wilson Bank & Trust office or online at wilsonbank.com to get started today. Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
Venture Express has been helping people in this area for more than 40 years. They're headquartered in Murfreesboro with over 30 years of dedicated fleets involving production, manufacturing, and corrugated experiences. They're an asset-based company with over 700 tractors, 4,000 trailers, and 800 drivers. If you need their help, dial them up 615-793-9500 or log on to ventureexpress.com.
Nashville Sounds Baseball is back in Hit City for the 2024 season. Spend your nights and weekends at the ballpark with weekly giveaways, fireworks shows, throwback deals, live music, and more. Top talent will take the field at First Horizon Park against the AAA Minnesota Twins, Baltimore Orioles, Atlanta Braves, St. Louis Cardinals, Cincinnati Reds, and more. Tickets start at just $10 and are available now at NashvilleSounds.com. We will see you in Hit City.
We are back. We're joined by a man who has 4 NBA championship rings. That is, my buddy Will Perdue earned them with the Chicago Bulls and also the San Antonio Spurs. Kelly, you have 12 minutes with Will Perdue. Make it the best 12 of your life.
I try, Will. I know you don't know me at all. Well, I've interviewed you before on this show last year, but I apologize, man. I know you've known George for a long time, but I apologize for that, man. I'm sorry.
Well, I've accepted it, but it's just kind of like the family. We all have that uncle.
True. We've all got skeletons in the closet. There's no question.
Seems like he had that answer pretty ready to fire out there. God,
he did. So Will, I know everybody asked you this, and I asked you this last time, but everybody's intrigued about The Last Dance. They love winners. They love all that stuff. How was it playing with the greatest ever? I mean, everybody talks about LeBron, but still, it's Michael Jordan to me. I mean, I grew up in that era. Was he tough to play for? Because I know he would rib you a little, and I played with guys like that, and I've heard of guys that, like the Charles Haleys of the world that won 6 Super Bowls, I think, with the 49ers and the Cowboys. But, if you didn't do what you're supposed to do, those guys were after you, and I think Jordan was kind of the same way. So just talk a little bit about what kind of a teammate was he? How hard was he to play with?
When I first got there, it was really difficult. He didn't know who I was. I don't think he respected me because, he was in Chicago and he knew 2 things: Big Ten basketball, because that's all that was on up there, and obviously the ACC because he came from North Carolina. So, he didn't really know much about Will Perdue. He always made a statement that, he was going to was calling me. He joked with the media that as far as he was concerned, my name was Will Vanderbilt because I obviously wasn't good enough to go to Purdue. But I was by Purdue and told them I preferred Vanderbilt. So, that's actually the truth on that aspect. But it took me a while to really earn his respect, as far as a player. And Kelly, you're right. It was difficult to play with him because his expectations were so hard and so high. And one of the things I've always told people was I think that it took him a while to really understand that a Will Perdue or a Steve Kerr or a John Paxson or these guys were never going to be as good as him because they just didn't have the ability. Play as hard, have the same type of values and accountability aspects and pride, but just doesn't have the athletic ability or aren't as gifted. Now, a lot of times you can talk to people that tell you that effort will be talent all the time. But the problem was Michael had both. He had effort and talent, and that's an unbeatable combination. And as the Bulls kept getting better and better, and Phil Jackson kept chipping away at Michael, that you got to trust your teammates. You got to let them in the inner circle. You got to let them do what they do. You can't do it all by yourself. That's how you saw the team get better and better. And that was hard for him to do because that means he had to give up control, right? He had to kind of, he was still the lead dog, but he wasn't driving the sled. That was what Phil did. And as he started to win championships, then all of a sudden he went from being the best player of all time, but we're not sure if he makes players better, to now that it's, he's hammered at home with all the championships and the, finals MVPs and regular season MVPs. Everybody knows it now because look at what he's done to his players and how he's made them better. But that was a win-win situation. But if you go back to The Last Dance, I got interviewed and I used the comment that he was an a-hole because he was difficult to play with. And even when you thought you played well, at times it wasn't good enough or up to his standards, he would still dress you down and tell you that it's got to be better. And it took a while to get adapted to that because the things I learned at Vanderbilt, from seeing Newton and John Bostic and Ed Martin, and, I thought I had a really good work ethic and I thought I had some pretty good standards and accountability, but that was nothing compared to, all those things when it came to Michael Jordan.
How about talk a little bit about Phil Jackson? I mean, he's such an innovative guy. He ran that, the crazy offense that kind of established Michael Jordan and all that. But what kind of guy was Phil Jackson? Because I think, I think times come together like Tom Brady and Bill Belichick at New England. It seemed like Phil Jackson and Michael Jordan came at the right time. I'm not sure. You might could have won a bunch of championships with another coach, but I just don't know because I think Phil Jackson was really good. Just reading some stuff about him, he understood how to, bring Michael Jordan, like you're talking about, into the team aspect because that's how you win championships.
Yeah, I mean, listen, and just to be clear, so everybody knows, Phil did a great job of allowing people to do their jobs. And what I mean by that is that he was like a point guard, right? He had great guys on the wing, and Johnny Bach, who's the assistant coach that ran the defense. Those were Johnny Bach's defenses, and we had a nickname throughout the league. Our defense was called the Doberman defense. And then he had Tex Winter. Tex Winter was actually the inventor of the triangle offense. He ran it at Long Beach State when he was there. He ran it at Northwestern when he was there, Kansas State. He invented it. He wrote the book on it. There's actually a book on the triangle offense that he wrote. So it wasn't necessarily Phil's offense, but it was Phil recognizing the fact that this offense that Tex wanted to implement, even when Doug Collins was there, that Doug didn't like it. Phil saw the benefits of it. So he allowed, when he took over as head coach, he kept Tex Winter on his staff and he kept Johnny Bach on the staff. Johnny Bach continued to run the defensive schemes, and Tex taught everybody, including Phil, during the process, the triangle offense. And it was like a match made in heaven. It took Phil a while to convince Michael that this would work because it's a very intricate offense. It's a read offense. There's no calls. You don't go 1 up, 2 down, 3 side. It's just as you're coming across half court, all 5 guys have to make the same read so you can make the same cuts and know exactly where to pass the basketball. And when you're running it correctly, you can't stop it. You just can't. And then you add Michael into that equation, it just 6 championships later, you understand why. Michael was a huge reason, but the offense might have been more important, or the triangle might have been more important than any one single player. But what Phil did was an excellent job of identifying the talent that was put together by Jerry Krause, and then how do I implement each individual into this, logarithm to try to get the maximum input so that we can win games. And that's what he did such a great job at. What people don't realize is Phil, during practices, didn't say a lot. Phil had a bad back. He couldn't stand for a long period of time, and he couldn't sit for long periods of time. So during practice, he just used to walk laps around the court, and Johnny Bach and Tex ran practices. Phil may say 10 words in a practice.
Oh, wow.
But game time came, Phil did all the talking, right? Everybody knew who the leader was, what was going on. But at the same time, he empowered the players to be able to speak up during games about what do you see that's working, what do you think's not working, things of that nature, to run certain aspects of the triangle or out of bounds plays, stuff like that, in order to, to totally bring this thing full circle.
Yeah, so all this stuff intrigues me, man. I know I'm asking you questions that people ask you every day, I'm sure, but how important was Scottie Pippen to all this?
Well, Scottie Pippen was the key, quite honestly. Think about it, a certain series, you go back to when we played the Lakers in 91, we lost game 1. Phil made a defensive adjustment and put Scottie on Magic and Michael on Byron Scott. We didn't lose another game. All right. Fast forward to the 98. Remember, they're playing Charlotte. And I think it was 98, or maybe it was the 72-10 year. But the year Glenn Rice was an all-star with Charlotte. Glenn Rice was giving the Bulls problems. Phil made another defensive adjustment. Put Scottie Pippen on Glenn Rice. Hornets went away. Now, they had to adjust, and it wasn't easy. But if you look at the record, it made it look easy because Scottie was the main defender. You're talking about 6'8". I think he had a 7-foot wingspan. He was a dynamic player. Unfortunately for him, we really don't know how good he really is. I think even if he wasn't playing with the Bulls, he probably was one of the top 5 players in the league. Now, some of it's luck when you get a chance to identify that talent like Jerry Krause did, and then pull off an unbelievable trade on draft night where you trade Scottie Pippen for Olden Polynice. Talk about hitting a home run. But also being able to keep those guys and develop them. And obviously Michael was the face of the franchise, the most important player. But to me, honestly, it's like 1 and 1A. Without Scottie Pippen, Michael doesn't win those championships because of just how effective he was at shutting guys down. And he just was so good because of what he could do or prevent others from doing that made our defense, he was, as they say, the lead of the pack when it comes to the Doberman defense. He was the main dog.
Will, we got to run. I cannot thank you enough for doing this. I know Kelly Holcomb appreciates it as well. Let's see you here in Nashville soon.
Well, George, I was just there, and we had a nice meeting with Mark Byington. I will tell you this. I think that, we can discuss whether he was the best fit at the time, but I think they have the best guy because, as you talked about, not only his work ethic, but his desire to win, and not win in a couple years, but to win now.
Sounds like it. Will, thank you.
All right, George. Do you need to send me the check?
So I sent it earlier. Now it may not get there till August.
There's nothing in the bank account, Will. So you might not worry about it, dude.
That's also true.
Well, that explains why George is driving Enzo out there.
See you, Will.
All right, guys. Enjoyed it. Thanks, Kelly.
See you. Yes, sir.
Former Vanderbilt and later former Chicago Bull star Will Perdue, our guest on the show. We will go to our final break of the hour. When we come back, we will have Plaster Bet of the Day. I don't have a ton of confidence in it, but then game 2 of a day-night doubleheader between the Braves and the San Diego Padres. Stay tuned. You're listening to the George Plaster Show on WNSR.
Crash.
Yeah.
Your kids were in the car with you.
We're very lucky to even be telling this story to you. Nikki treated us like family, and she was very caring and loving, and I'm just so grateful for that. She was somebody I could trust, and being a veteran, that's so important to me. My kids are going to have a better life now because I don't have to worry about those expenses that we were out. Your family has really created a legacy of trust, and I would recommend you to anyone.
Hey, if you're looking for a place to catch all the hockey and hoops action this spring, look no further than the Alley Pub in Bellevue. And now here's Samantha to tell you about one of their great weekly specials.
Attention service industry. We want to say cheers to you at the Alley Pub, located at 7040 Highway 70 South in Bellevue. Every Wednesday night, bring a copy of your ABC card or pay stub to receive 20% off of your tab. Only at the Alley Pub, Bellevue's best sports bar and grill.
For over 35 years, Wilson Bank & Trust has been committed to providing customized banking solutions to help individuals, families, and businesses in Tennessee achieve their goals. As your full-service community bank, we are proud to offer loans with competitive rates, local decision-making, and fast, friendly service from our experienced lenders. No matter where you are on your financial journey, Wilson Bank & Trust is ready to help you take the next step. Visit your nearest Wilson Bank & Trust office or online at wilsonbank.com to get started today. Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
As the trusted premier custom home builder in Middle Tennessee, Donnelly Timmons has over 20 years of experience in the industry. Whether you're looking to build your dream home or renovate your current home, their team will ensure that every client and every remodel is unique, luxurious, and completed on time within budget. Founders Dustin Timmons and Joey Donnelly have over 25 years of construction experience in the Nashville area. Together, they have completed projects in Forest Hills, Oak Hill, Green Hills, Franklin, and Brentwood. Dustin and Joey believe that communication is the most important aspect of all construction projects. Therefore, they personally manage each project themselves and are involved in job site activities on a daily basis. Their commitment to quality and integrity has earned them an outstanding reputation among their clients. Contact them to set an appointment for a free consultation or to view some of their completed projects. Give them a call at 615-456-7983 or log on to DonnellyTimmons.com.
PJ's Painting Service is on the air reminding all motorists to slow down on our roads, keep an eye out for kids at play and in our school zones, and to never text and drive. It can wait. This message courtesy of PJ's Painting Service, serving the area with quality and pride for the last 5 years. For commercial and residential painting, pressure washing, and drywall installs, call PJ's Painting Service today at 256-663-0781, 256-663-0781.
Reaction Monday, Braves baseball coming up. But first, Bet of the Day, brought to you by Bart Durham Injury Law. Give them a call, 615-242-9000, or log on to bartdurham.com. All right, first let's check out what happened last night for Plaz. And, Ty has, if you're watching, Pacers is in red, but that was actually a win. So,
yeah, we can't be ripping me off.
No, we can't.
One win last night.
So I had the Pacers who won, and the Bruins and the Colorado Avalanche who lost. Now, that was from last Friday,
right?
Which gives me a pathetic record after a year and a half of total domination. This year, not so good. 102 wins, 121 losses, to which we say awful.
Yeah.
Awful.
Not great.
George, we're just not used to this. Last year you did dominate twice. When are we cutting this thing off again so we can start over? Because you probably need to start over.
I probably do need to start.
That's what I was saying. Maybe each month or two.
Yeah, I don't know.
Need a fresh start.
So, do you have what I'm going with tonight?
I do.
Okay. There it is. This is a series that every time it's been in Vancouver, I have had the wrong team. I have had Edmonton every night. I am sick of losing with Edmonton on the road at Vancouver. So tonight is Game 7, do or die. And because of an injury, Vancouver is a huge underdog, almost $1.50. To which, Billy, I say, screw it. I'm taking Vancouver.
Canucks, baby. Let's go.
Yeah.
I like what Darren said, the knuckleheads earlier, too.
Oh, gosh. You know, what I will say this, what this series has done, it's kind of shown me that the Predators are closer than maybe we thought when the last series was over.
I mean, that was a narrow series. I say easily could have won it, but they could have won that series.
Kelly, tomorrow, the full-blown 2 hours. No cut short, abbreviated edition, the full 2. Tony Basilio will join us from Knoxville. If you have never heard him before, when he joins us at 4:20, you are in for a real treat. And then during the 5 o'clock hour, we are going to gauge how many of you are out there ready and raring to go to talk sports. The 5 o'clock hour, completely open phones. I haven't talked to anybody on a phone in 2 years. Podcast sounded good, but I've missed the phones.
Maybe
I got you. Looking forward. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
This phone says I have 19 seconds left before music starts hitting.
You've done a pretty good job with the time today, George. You got us all on the same track, all on the right track for day one. I like it.
We didn't have any big snafus today, for which we are very thankful.
Now you can go home and watch the Braves on No, you can't. Sorry.
No, that's not happening. We'll get into that probably tomorrow as well. Okay. Thanks to all of you for being with us for this first day. As you probably got a little bit of a glimpse, it's a lot like it has been for years. We're going to talk sports. If you want movies, if you want movie gossip, we're not your show. If you want to talk sports, we're where you need to be. Tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Kelly, behave until then. Kelly,
drink my wine.
try to improve your behavior.
I'll do my best.
See all of you tomorrow. Go Braves.
None will ever own the mind. Nobody up in this world. Hey.